Welcome to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlinson and I ask my guests one simple question. Why? Focusing on the importance of why, I share with you the relatable, uplifting and inspiring conversations I have with people from all walks of life. This podcast will encourage you to focus on your why to enable and empower you to achieve the success you desire. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. So today I have Jo Akhgar in the house. Welcome.
Hi, how's it going?
Very well, thank you. Very excited to have you on the podcast and talk about your 5 hats.
Yes, my 5 hats. What are my 5 hats? I've forgotten. There's so many of them.
There are indeed. So what I mean by 5 hats, or what you mean by 5 hats, because that's how you describe yourself, that you are aware of many hats, or you are lots of things is your sort of title. Why don't you just walk us through what those are, Jo?
Okay, so first and foremost, my first hat is property investor. So I'm a property investor. My second hat is a teacher and trainer. And my third hat links the two together because often I end up being a public speaker. So I do the speaker circuit and I end up sort of teaching and talking about property. My fourth hat is I'm a podcaster. So just like you, I co-host the Property Jam podcast with my gorgeous co-hosties, Matt Baker and Niall Scott. And the fifth hat is a new hat. I haven't quite popped it on yet, but I'm sort of designing my hat at the moment. And it's looking to set up a new business as a mentor a mentor in public speaking. That's how I'm labeling it.
So it's something that you've organically arrived at because people are asking you for that service. So you've been doing it for a while, but just not monetized it and realized actually you should be.
Yeah, 100%. Because the thing is, it's really weird. It's all roads. So when I started in property led to teaching property, teaching led to public speaking, and public speaking kind of led to having a networking event, and that kind of led to a podcast. And in and around all of that, it's organically highlighted that I should be monetizing sort of teaching people how to speak publicly, or empowering people and mentoring people in that skill. It's all sort of led there, and it's quite exciting because it's just happened, like you say, organically, because it's the one thing that people come to me the most about if they've got like a big presentation that they're doing, or they're training up to teach material, so material that I teach in and around property. Yeah, I seem to be the first port of call, and I absolutely love it. I love that one-to-one. I love that taking somebody who might not be necessarily very confident about their speaking style or what it is they're delivering, and then getting them to tap into the most authentic version of themselves and present that on stage. It's something I can do, and it's something that I love.
And I think that's really clear. Whenever I see you on stage, I mean, you put 100% into that performance. And it is essentially a type of performance in the communication that you're delivering to the audience.
Yeah, it's weird, actually, which is funny because it's probably the thing that connects me to my educational backgrounds more than anything ever has, because I always laugh. Like, my degrees were quite bizarre, really, and I'll tell you about those in a minute. But it's funny how, for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm setting up a business that actually uses my educational background, because everything else has kind of happened just because I fell across it, or I was looking for something that satisfied a certain issue or problem that I was having in my life. And this is completely different. So it's like all the bits of that jigsaw puzzle are finally coming together, and it's really exciting. It feels like it's supposed to be happening. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I think when you've got a passion for something, if you are able to pursue that and monetize it in a sense that you're enjoying what you're doing, then that can absolutely go stratospheric in terms of the achievements that you will then get. But you'll get fulfillment is most important.
Yeah, and fulfillment often comes from passion, doesn't it? So passion is my favorite word in the English language. It's just, I think it encompasses so much. And in fact, when I did my master's degree, I did it on the word passion, and just how important that is. because if you are passionate about something, you will put all of your energy into that. And that's the thing that you should definitely monetize. I know so many people talk about that. You know, there is just endless books on that topic, and there are endless podcasts and vlogs and blogs about that stuff. But it really is true. And I think probably for the first time, I'm feeling that most authentically, because it's something that I'm setting up by myself. So yeah,
it's interesting. I think it's interesting you say that there are so many pieces out there written about it, and it's forever been said. But how many people actually pursue their passion?
Probably not many, actually. And well, I've been guilty of this too. It's some people don't know what it is, or which I guess that was my situation. You know, I sort of knew the skill set was there, but I never thought about it in business terms. So that's one thing. So I needed sort of the universe and people to show me that, and that's what's happened. But also, I mean, like everybody feels, is you're frightened that if you do have a passion, well, actually, for example, I mean, my degrees, a lot of it was performance based, and so many of the people that I studied with were aspiring actors, even though the discipline that we were studying in the university was not really to turn out actors. It wasn't that kind of thing at all. But nonetheless, it drew that sort of crowd. And so many of them were like, I want to be an actor, I want to be an actor. But really, they had given up before they even started, because the idea of making it in the acting world was almost near on impossible in their mind. So they kind of had decided that it wasn't going to happen. And that obviously sets people off course.
Perhaps that's why you sort of aligned yourself with those people, thinking that, well, you know, you almost put that whole education behind you for the same reason, that you weren't going to use it, so it wasn't really worthy. But you did really well in it.
I did. It's ridiculous. Okay, so I'll give you a whistle-stop tour. So I did a BA, right? And I always laugh, because when I tell people what I did a BA in, they get the giggles, or the eyebrow goes up, because you can kind of see them go, that's not vocational, or why did you do that? So my BA was in Spanish and theatre. So Spanish is language, and I'm not silly. If you do a Spanish degree, you get a year abroad in Spain. I'm like, yeah, winning. Let's do that. That's fantastic, right? And the second part of it was performance studies, which is, a lot of people will assume that's acting and drama and theatre and stuff like that. And there are elements to it, but it's more like the academic arm of those topics. So you might be looking at somebody or something in a performative kind of way. So you might be looking at an object and looking at the performance of that object in a space, or the performance of a person just walking through everyday life, and you'll come at it from a very specific angle, and you'll link other disciplines in, like maybe anthropology or psychoanalysis or even theology. So it's really broad ranging, very academic actually. So I did that as a BA, and then I kind of dropped the Spanish and went on to do performance studies as a master's, and that's where I kind of excelled, because during that 1 year of full-on master's degree, I took my brain to places I didn't even know it could go to, and I really learned so much about self-discipline and creativity, and also what I was capable of academically, which was just fantastic. And then from there, I took it on to PhD level and got halfway through, but because I was self-funded, and because it was really hard. It's very lonely doing a PhD, a little bit like being a property investor, interestingly enough. It's very lonely. And 2.5 years through, I decided to stop, and that was the right decision. My intention for doing the PhD was to teach. So that drive to teach, that drive to kind of educate was always in me, because I knew it's something you feel in your bones. You know what you're good at. And I could feel in my bones that I would be good at teaching. But I could also sense that was the wrong pathway. So yeah, it's all about that sort of organic, everything leading to this point in my life. And it's going back to what we were saying about my education. I'm kind of more proud of it now. The reason I'm less sort of sheepish about telling people what I studied, because I get the raised eyebrow, is because now it bloody makes sense. Does that make sense? Like now I'm putting together something that links those topics. So Spanish is all about taking language from one form and translating it into another, so that the person can understand it, or your audience can understand it. And performance is the same. It's all about making yourself known and clear to a spectator or an audience, and how you do that as yourself. yourself, you know, how you perform in a space, how you use language, how you pitch, how you pace, all of that. Yeah, I can do that with my eyes closed. So it's like,
and because you've got a message that you want to share, that's what makes it now important for you.
Yeah. I think the message, I mean, the biggest message, I think, and you know, you follow people on social media, right? And there's so much false nonsense out there. And anyone on Instagram probably gets insta fatigue because you're just looking at false image after false image after false image. But the people I follow and the people that I'm most interested in are the ones that come across as their most authentic self. You know, there's no agenda. Yeah, they might be selling something, but I'm going to buy it if I buy into them. And what I don't want to do is kind of create a model that it becomes a copy and paste of who I am and what I do and how I present and how I speak, because that's not authentic to somebody else. So what I want to do is get people in touch with their most authentic self, almost like their truth, so that when they are publicly speaking or they are presenting to other people, that comes across from almost like their inner core, their inner soul. And I feel like it's my job to facilitate that. And I think I'm going to learn a lot from doing that myself, you know.
Definitely. It's an incredible space being in the public speaker space. I don't know if you've ever been to one of the Professional Speaker Association meetings.
I haven't actually, and I think this is what I'm realizing I need to expose myself to more, is more the network and the theory behind public speaking, because I know what I feel and I know what I do, but now I need to immerse myself more in that. So yeah, talk to me a bit about that.
Well, it's just such a great opportunity to mix with people from different industries, because we've both got a background of property and we're heavily networked in that industry. And going to a PSA meeting means that you are talking to people from all different walks of life, from all different backgrounds, and they've all got a story that they're sharing on a stage. And for me, it's been invaluable, because you're going to have quite a few people on this podcast we're listening to over the next few months who have come from that arena, and it's just such a sort of rich environment of content and exposure to different stories. And essentially we all have a story, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything's a story. I think that's what I'm learning. You know, there's a reason why on Facebook and Instagram you have the story and the story function, because it's people giving snapshots of themselves in their own version of themselves. And I think if you can do that in a public space with confidence and speak the truth of whatever it is you're talking about, that's a massive skill. You know, it's really, really powerful. And surrounding yourself by like-minded people who can enable that is just great. So yeah, I think you highlight something that I'm kind of getting acutely aware of. There's been some books that have been drawn to my attention recently, and it's so strange, isn't it? We talk about that reticular activating system, that when you decide something, all of a sudden those opportunities start to present themselves. And without a doubt, that's happened to me. Like, it's just suddenly books have come on my horizon, people have been signposted to me, and I've been signposted to people, and it's just, yeah, this is definitely supposed to be happening. But I'm terrified, Amy. I'm so scared.
Do you know, it's really funny, because those things are out there at all times, and yet we just sort of maneuver from one space to another, oblivious sometimes of what's actually right in front of us. And that for me is always a bit of a weird concept, that, you know, all these people were investing in property when I didn't know anything about being financially independent, or all these people were having fantastic opportunities of reading books on personal development, and I didn't even know that bookshelf was in existence in Waterstones or other bookshops. And you know, it's just until you sort of open your mind and have the opportunity to speak to other people, you can become quite closed in your circle. But once you open that circle and see more opportunities come your way, and if you start showing any kind of passion, coming back to what you were saying earlier, people will then say, oh, I know, you should do this or you should do that, because you're showing your true self. And that's why people are swiping and not scrolling anymore, because they want to see the stories and not the feed.
Yeah, the stories and not the feed. That is so true. Do you know what? It's so funny, right? I'm going to tell you this story because it came up. This happened a few weeks ago before the whole lockdown situation from COVID-19 happened. So, okay, I recently befriended somebody on Facebook. I don't know how. I don't know if they befriended me. I don't know if I befriended them. I've got no idea because I've been actively trying to expand my network. So anyway, it organically happened. However it happened. And I saw a post that they posted the other day. I was one of the first to see it. And it said, I've got a VIP ticket available to this particular event. And I was like, oh, wow. It was going to be in the middle of March. And when I looked at what the event was, it was a 2-day conference, basically immersing myself in exactly the kind of people that I need to be surrounding myself by. So trainers, podcasters, entrepreneurs, public speakers, mentors, coaches, all of that good stuff. And I was like, I was supposed to see this post, when you just like, this was supposed to happen. So, VIP ticket as well. And they weren't asking for money back. They were just asking that I make a donation to a charity. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I got in touch. I was the first person to respond. That's exactly what I did. I responded and I got the ticket. It was like this golden ticket. And I thought, that's amazing. Now, sadly, because of the COVID-19 situation, for obvious reasons, 500 people under a space in one roof, under one roof for 2 days was not the best idea. So it did get cancelled. However, what that has led to is conversations with people who organised that conference, following up with me, asking what that I had hoped to get out of it. And then I've been referred and signposted to other people, which has been brilliant. So again, mastermind groups, contacts, future events that they're going to be running that I'm going to be attending. Really great, right? Like absolutely fantastic. So yeah, it just kind of proved the point to me that this is supposed to be happening. But that led to getting my business card printed ahead of time and thinking through what that looked like and the message that I'm putting out there. Yeah, great.
Well, you're just meant to see what you're meant to see sometimes, and I believe in serendipity hugely. And I responded to one post on Instagram, and that was linked Ruth Hobbs. She was posting about a particular event, and I went along to that event, and that was back in September, and that has definitely changed and my entire life and my circle of friends to be involved with all these women in property. But also a lot of these women have got other industries that they're involved in as well. So it has definitely, and that's one of the reasons this podcast has manifested itself as well.
Oh yeah, I mean that journey alone, I just, I admire you so much because everything you do comes from a place of intent, and you never do anything like half measures. I always, okay, listeners, seriously, Amy has got the ability to document and research like no human being on earth. It is quite unbelievable. And so when you and I were talking last week about this idea that you'd had for this podcast, when you can feel it, you can actually feel it in your bones that this is 100% the right direction for you. And I couldn't be more excited because it plays into everything that you are. I think you are a strong woman in property. You are a strong woman in business. You are an amazing networker. And so, I've picked up on that. It's so funny. I'm so connected through our podcast to, different people, certainly on social media. And I look at, one profile and there you are, there's a picture of Amy. And then there's somebody talking about a networking event that they were at the other night. Oh, there you are. There's Amy. There she is. Yeah, you're very much plugged into that world. So using this as a platform to keep joining those dots and make more connections is just, especially amongst women. Yeah, I think this is great. Big fan.
Oh, thank you, Jo, and I really appreciate everything you just said. So I just do what I do, and I think that I'm, as you say, I'm just honest with myself, and I work the way I work. And I don't know, people always look at me and say, well, why have you got a spreadsheet with all your books on that you've read or been recommended and got colour coding? It's like, well, doesn't everyone have one of those? No, okay, clearly not.
Amy, no, there's no other human being, not one that I can think of that does. But that's why you're so good at what you do. I mean, we have completely different approaches. I'm very intuitive, so I follow my gut above anything else in my life. It's never steered me wrong. And if I can feel that something isn't right, then I won't even invest any of my time into it. But when I know something is right, well, it's like a physical reaction. It's almost like a spiritual, emotional reaction. All of those things connect, and then I will pursue it. And then I turn into a bit of an Amy Rowlinson. Then I will start to, really get under the skin of something and do my due diligence. And the same is true of property. The same is true of personal decisions in my life. It's a feeling. It's like a compass, it's a compass. That's exactly what it is. So
and
how did your
compass steer you towards your first property investment title that you gave yourself?
My first hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a funny one. So there was lots of reasons why that came about. The first and foremost was sort of looking after my family, really. My parents got to a stage in their life where they were both retired and not particularly financially comfortably. Their state pensions were near on non-existent. Their private pensions, well, my mum didn't have one, but my dad's was negligible. And they weren't okay. They had their life savings, which I could, if you're looking at the years ahead, they're going to spend them. There's no more money coming in. So I wanted to make sure they had something in their years that meant they were okay. And they are also responsible for my brother Stevie. Now, Stevie's severely disabled and they still are his primary carers, even though they're now in their mid-70s. And for me, that's not the healthiest of situations. And so what I wanted to do, being the only sibling really that could do anything about it, because Stevie couldn't, was to create a situation whereby money was coming in that passively set them free. And what that did, by giving my parents a bit of money, it set them free financially, but also it set Stevie free so that we can start to look at, the bigger picture when they're no longer around, and sort of transitioning him out of the family home, which is healthier for my parents and it's healthier for Stevie. So yeah, that was a big motivation for me, because that's a massive, as you can imagine, emotional topic. It involves a lot of change and it involves a lot of letting go and it involves money. And ever since I was a little girl, because I've known Stevie was going to be my responsibility, making sure that he was okay and that my parents were okay whenever that transition came has been a massive driver. More than a driver, I think it's been my mission in a way. For anyone I speak to, they always know that is a big part of what I do and why I do it. So property was a natural answer to that, because I could get them passive income. But I
did
could
you
also...
know that? When did you work that out? Because were you financially educated in any way to understand that a passive income was an option?
Oh God, no. Oh no, not at all. I mean, I didn't even know what the words passive or income were. I mean, it all came about because I think so that links into the second reason, because it's kind of what led me to finding out how property could help. So my husband had a brain hemorrhage 7 years ago now, completely out of the blue, terrifying, took a long time to get over. But the offshoot of that trauma was to get perspective and just stop dicking about. Sorry, I'm allowed to swear, probably not. Stop mucking around, trying to, making excuses as to why, you want to help your family, but you're kind of peacocking. You're peacocking, saying you want to help and be the good Samaritan, but you're not actually doing anything about it. And you've got no provision for the future. So get on with it. Do something about it. And when that happened, that was when I got perspective, and our reticular activating systems opened to opportunity and possibility. And that's when we saw an advert in a newspaper advertising a seminar about property. That led to attending a 3-day workshop. And that's when all the light bulbs went off. God, I have to say that workshop was probably one of the most pivotal moments of my life, because not only did I realize how little I knew about life and money, so passive income suddenly appeared as a concept and I couldn't believe it. I also then started having light bulbs going off left, right and center about how I could help my mum and dad, and how I could set my brother free, and how I could get financial independence for me. But also I could see myself teaching it. again, I felt this very strongly when I was in that classroom. I was like, I was watching the person teaching me, no disrespect to them, they were not a terrible teacher, they were a fantastic teacher, but I knew, because teaching was always a passion and something that I wanted to do, I was like, I could do that and I could do it better. I could feel it. So, or you imagine, it was probably one of the most overwhelming experiences I think I've ever had.
So that's interesting, because not only did you see yourself going down the process of investing, but you jumped several stages to going into the teaching. So you almost was excited so much that the property was like, by the by, I just want to teach this.
Yeah, totally. Because you know what? It's like, oh yeah, all these people, they're investing up north and, you know, they're raising money and they're, you know, all of that. I was like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. I can learn all that. I'm sure I'm just going to do all that. That's fine. Yeah, I'll do all that, because that's the financial side. But I think what sprung out of that event was the self-fulfillment side, like the now is my time kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, that, oh my God, I think I'm supposed to be doing this. And you know, it was very, very strong. It was like a gravitational pull. And yeah, the property was like I almost flip it the other way around. The property is not the passion. Yeah. And I knew that, and I'm very okay with that. Property is brilliant for what it does, but do I love bricks and mortar? Oh God, no. You know, it's bricks and mortar. There's aspects of it I enjoy, but it's not, going back to that word I said earlier, it's not my passion. And I know that my passion links to property, but my passion comes from, you know, teaching people how it can create opportunity and possibility for them. That gives me life. I love it. It's everything.
So property can either be your passion or it can fuel your passion.
Oh God, yeah. I always say this to people. There's two kinds of investor. There's the first who wants to roll up their sleeves, get amongst it, you know, be on site, talking to the trade, getting plaster dust all over them, you know, set up a letting agency, all that sort of stuff. They watch Homes Under the Hammer, location, grand design. That's their world. And they want to live and breathe it. All power to you. Then you've got the other side. You've got the person who doesn't want to be a property investor, but they want property to be a facilitator for a lifestyle that they choose. I position myself somewhere between the two, interestingly enough, because there are parts of property, especially on the capital side. So like, I love refurbs. I love project managing. So I enjoy that aspect of it. But the rest of it, I mean, quite honestly, puts me to sleep. You know, legals, paperwork, raising the finance, finding the deals, valuation packs, all of that. I do it. But, you know, I quite happily park that aspect of it. But I think really the passion is teaching the possibility. That's where it's at.
I think your strength is in the communication, because I don't know anyone else who's managed to get an investor by sitting on a bus on their way home from work one time.
Oh my God, that's like my favourite story. That was so funny. It was so random. Oh God, shall I tell it, or have we not got time?
Yes, no, please.
Okay. Right, so picture the scene. It's a Monday afternoon, and I'm in property. I've got a couple of properties under my belt by this point, but I'm still working full time, and I'm working full time in a university in Bloomsbury in central London. And I was on my way home from work, and it was so awful. It was chucking it down with rain. It was a grey day. I was in traffic on the Aldwych in London, heading towards Waterloo Bridge. And I'm on the best seat of the bus, which, as everybody knows, is the top deck at the front. That's where you've got to sit on the bus to get the best view. And the seat next to me was empty. And then we pull up at this bus stop, and I hear somebody coming up the stairs, and they're all jolly. They've got a spring in their step, and they're all like, and they come and sit down next to me. Now, bearing in mind, I've got a face on, I'm grumpy, I'm on my way home from work, I'm not in the mood, and it's Monday, and it's raining, and it's awful. And this person decides to start talking to me. And I took one look at her, and I thought, oh God, here we go. She's a tourist, right? I'm stuck because, you know, I'm in traffic. She's going to be with me for the long haul, and she's too bubbly for her own good. Anyway, she starts talking to me. She's like, hi. And I'm like, you're right. Yeah. She's like, I love your city. I was like, oh, great. Yeah, this is my American accent, by the way. Apologies if I'm offending any American listeners. And she's like, I love your city. I love your transport system. You know, you're so lucky. I've been all over Northeast, Southwest. You guys are just so lucky. And I'm like, yeah, great. Cheers. Didn't want to talk to her, just giving her nothing. And then she's like, what do you do for a living? Now, the smart me should have said, I'm a property investor and I get people high returns on their money. But the mood I was in and the fact I wanted to shut down the conversation, I just said, I just work in a university up the road. And she went, oh. And that was it, silence. Now, silence is awful at the best of times, you know, when you're in conversation with somebody. But when it's a stranger who's really investing in you, you just feel like you've got to say something back. So I just left it for a bit and then I went, okay, well, what do you do then? And she said, oh, I'm in real estate. And I was like, are you? And that was it. We got into deep conversation. And what was bizarre, what was really, really bizarre, was not only did she invest in the UK in property, because she's from Texas, and she had property in Texas, and she had all sorts of investments all over the place. She's in the world of horse training and all this sort of stuff. But she also randomly had invested in Grimsby, which is one of my investment areas. I'm like, what are the chances of meeting someone on the top deck of a 91 bus who's not only from Texas, but investing in Grimsby? What the heck? You know, it was just bizarre. And she ended up in my investor pool. She's amazing.
So there you go. You just need to keep telling everyone what you do, don't you? You just have to.
Yeah, you do.
And be open to conversation.
Yeah, 100%.
So you said just then, now is your time, or now is my time. And you've definitely aligned yourself in terms of why you're doing it with what you're doing, which is why you are combining your passion with your purpose, which is fantastic. What is your message? What is it you're wanting to achieve? I
think, it's a big question. My gut, so my response to that, my reflex response was fulfillment. I think happiness is a funny word. I don't buy into happiness, because I don't think happiness is a permanent state. I think happiness is something that is just so transient. And if you are permanently happy, that's not a natural state to be in. So for me, even if I'm feeling sad, I can feel fulfilled. And I think now I'm at a stage in my life where fulfillment is of the utmost importance. So I think fulfillment from seeing other people reach their potential, from seeing other people take what they believed was possible for themselves to a whole new level, is absolutely something that I will get fulfillment from. But I think also being to self-preserve, to be able to be resilient whatever the world throws at us. And I mean that in terms of my mental strength, but I also mean that in terms of my financial independence. I mean that in terms of being able to stand on my own 2 feet, regardless of what goes on with external factors. And never have I felt that more than with the current situation that we all find ourselves in with the virus. I think I want to build upon that, and I want to empower others to build upon that in their own lives.
And in your teaching and training, Jo, I mean, that is an incredible driver for you, that the fulfillment of others and helping others to achieve the state that you've achieved. And you see that day in, day out on your training sessions. You see the potential.
Do you know what it is? You see self-doubt in so many people. And I have to say it, and it pains me to say it, but particularly women. Often when I'm teaching, it's the female members of the classroom that I want to reach out to the most. And it's often because they've come to the training from, it's like a calling. They've suddenly realised that they are perhaps on the wrong side of 40 or 50. And they perhaps have found themselves dependent on a partner, or perhaps they've dedicated themselves so much to being a parent that somewhere in and amongst all of that, they've lost their identity and they've lost their independence. And that comes in so many forms. That comes in their passions, that comes through their career, and certainly financially as well. And so I end up saying the same thing a lot, is like, well, now is your time, and use property as a way to reconnect with who you think you are. Now is your time to invest and own that. And in fact, recently I taught a lady, and often this is the case, it's people who've gone through divorce and they've come out the other side of it and they've lost money, in that divorce, or they've lost a sense of themselves. Can I be strong on my own? Like, can I be? And what they do is they turn their attention to property, and it will either satisfy two things, that going back to those two examples we gave earlier, they will either roll up their sleeves and get involved in property and command those projects and almost find themselves through property, or they use property as a vehicle to get them to tap into that thing that they're supposed to be doing on this planet. And that might be, maybe the byproduct of that is financial independence, or maybe it's they set up a business because they've now got the time to do it because the money's coming in and they're following their passion that way. Or sometimes it's just a big fat healthy dose of self-belief and self-esteem, and like, I can do something other than be a mum and a wife, like there's more to me than that.
Well, that's definitely the path that I followed, and 100% in terms of I've got a nicer spin of, instead of saying I was on the wrong side of 40, I call myself a midlife beginner. And
love it.
Yeah, I think that my midlife beginnings have come for a reason, and I journal every day, and I'm on day 1,220 currently, consecutive days of journaling. And for me, that has been an incredible experience, just to follow my journey. When I look back of what I wrote on day 1, on day 70, on day 220, and I look back and go, wow, you have come a long way.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's a funny old thing, property, because it's not property really. I mean, it is, but it just opens up so much more. And being able to document that journey is just, that's incredible. It's the best diary ever, right?
It's a personal one. It's not for anyone else. It's also, I write notes on the books I've read and key points that I would like resonate with me, that help drive me, help focus me, and have helped me focus on why. And that's why I'm now so clear that what I'm doing is right, and what I'm doing is the right thing in terms of helping everybody to create the lives that they desire and stretch their possibilities. And I said it before, but I've only got one thing on my to-do list, and that is get out of my comfort zone.
Yes. Oh God, I hear that. And do you know what, right? I think you're talking about age and sort of like, being a beginner in your 40s. Now I'm 38, but in my head, I just feel that I'm now open to those lessons. I'm open to that possibility. If you'd have shown me all of this stuff back when I was 21, 22, I just don't think I would have been able to process it or handle it or been able to execute it in the same way, because where my brain is at in terms of readiness and awareness and self-knowledge, and I don't think I'd been able to put it into practice like I can now.
And perhaps Alan's brain hemorrhage also made a difference.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that was perspective for sure. That's life's short, and it can be taken away from you very quickly. And so when you have to go into battle, you are prepared, because all the other stuff is all right in the background, so you can focus on the fight in hand. And actually, I have to say, with COVID, it feels exactly like that. It feels, I mean, I've been here before and worse, where something's been thrown at us that, you has completely turned your world upside down. And all you can do is get through. And I feel so prepared mentally, emotionally, and also financially for this. And again, this situation holds a mirror up to that, which is, it's like I was saying to you earlier, it's very reaffirming.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Focus on why. I think you're very focused on why. And you've shared with us an incredible journey. So thank you.
No, my pleasure. And thank you for having me on. I have found this as an experience incredibly useful as well. It kind of has shown me that I'm on track, and that's cool.
So your message to the women out there, what would you say to them?
I'm going to go with the title. Now is your time. Chances are, if you found this podcast, or if you've thought about expanding your horizons in some way, you already know that. because that's why you're listening. So don't ignore that. Whenever you encounter this, or whenever you find yourself in a space where you are looking to make a change or pursue a passion, say to yourself, now is my time, because it is. And allow yourself to be open to whatever the universe then shows you.
Thank you for listening to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlinson, and if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave me a 5-star iTunes review. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook, and become a member of the inspiring, uplifting and positive Focus on Why Facebook group. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.